It was magic. One of those magic moments that come only once in a lifetime. I thought at the time, am I just imagining all this? I'll tell you about it as it happened to me. How can I describe it? A meeting of eyes, minds, hearts, souls. She looked at me and I looked at her, and at that instant I knew, she knew, the world stood still. It was as I'd always imagined. There was no need for words. I took her hands, she took mine. As far as we were concerned, there was no one else in the room, in the world, in the universe, and already we were building memories together. We walked in the park, and it rained. Neither of us noticed. I was impervious to weather, snow, wind, thunder. It meant nothing. We talked, laughed, shared our souls. She told me all about her fiancé, the Baron of Bermondsey, but she vowed to send back the $750,000 engagement ring, the Porsche, the villa, and the Regent's Park house. We would live simply, she and I. Oh, it was magic.
Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aitken,
and I'm Keith Eyles, and we're both independent filmmakers who enjoy discussing movies and related topics. And for this special tribute episode, we're very pleased to be joined by two special guests. We have Samuel and George Clemens, collectively known as the Clemens Brothers. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, cheers, man.
Good to have you on, and been a while since we've seen you both, so good to see you. Obviously, for the benefit of our listeners, before we actually get into the nuts and bolts of this particular episode, just wondered whether you could sort of introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about yourselves, and also, of course, you come from some legacy in the film and television world as well. So tell us a little bit about that as well, please.
Well, we're the sons of Brian Clemens, who created the AVENGERS and Professionals, so we've grown up around the film industry and been very privileged to do so. Myself, I'm an editor, but I direct with Sam as well, and we obviously produce. We've done a number of shorts, one called Surgery, which came out fairly recently. It's just finished its festival run and has done pretty well, 35 festivals and 8 awards?
I think it's 8.
8 awards.
That's a good one.
So we're very pleased with that, and that's shortly going to be released online. We're still working out where we're going to do that.
And that was Dad's last idea, wasn't it?
That was Dad's very last idea. Mm-hmm. But aside from that, as an editor, I'm working on a couple of feature films. So just been working on one that we're almost at the picture lock now, called Mother of All Secrets, which stars Kate Mansi and Kelly McGuinness, and Kate Mansi just won an Emmy, so we're quite excited about where that's going to go distribution-wise.
Kelly McGuinness looks quite different.
Yeah, from Top Gun. And then the other one I worked on with the same company, TriVenture Films, by any means, is being released at the end of this month on iTunes. So, Leighton, this is your plug. It's to fit in. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. Sam?
So, I'm Sam, and also son of Brian Clemens. And we must mention, obviously, he created the pilot for the Persuaders.
Right.
Which is obviously, Roger Moore-tastic for this episode. And, so George and I trained as an actor. I trained at the Drama Centre London from 1998 to 2001. Tom Hardy was in my year, for any kind of famous rubbish people want to know. Who's Tom who?
I was going to say,
go on.
He's not doing that well.
Doing very well, is he?
A few adverts here and there.
A few adverts, yeah.
For Sky Mobile.
Just don't steal his sugar.
I won't. Don't steal his. He gets very annoyed with that. Yeah.
Was he like that at drama school?
Yeah,
He got
don't steal
annoyed
his
about
sugar. Yeah.
I thought it was his thunder that you'd been
Well, he anyway. So I trained at the drama centre, and I've been working as an actor ever since, pretty much in and out of I've probably done more theatre than anything else. I've been lucky to work with some great companies and some wonderful people, and it was while I was at the Royal Shakespeare Company that I don't know if they still do it now, but they have camera equipment and stuff, and they allow the actors to basically make films because you're in Stratford upon Avon for so long, and then at the end of the sort of summer they screen them at the local cinema. And that was my introduction to sort of making films as a part. I was just so concerned with being an actor. This was something different. And Matthew Rhys, who's gone on to be very famous in The Americans and Brothers and Sisters and all that kind of stuff. He was Romeo in Romeo and Juliet we were doing. And he directed a short that he wrote called Goodfellas, which was a parody of Goodfellas, where instead of we're selling drugs, we're selling sonnets and quartos and folios. Well, it was so much fun. I mean, he shot the whole film in a day. And the reason I mention it is because that was my sort of, I just got the bug of, oh my God, you can just go out with a camera with your mates and make a film. Like, I just didn't, even though we came from this sort of, from this industry, well, our father being in this industry and being on sets and stuff, it always just felt quite far away because of the amount of money that's involved in it. But suddenly just to see a load of guys just with a camera and just let's go and shoot something and then screen at the end and it be in the cinema, just for an audience, I just was like, we've got to do this. And that was I got the bug and then rang George, and George obviously was an editor and was starting out, and just thought, well, you have all those skill sets, which I have no idea of how do you do that. I've had to learn subsequently since then.
You're a bit better now.
Yeah, a bit better. And from my sensibility, we thought it'd be a good idea to bring them together and see if we could start making stuff. And we've been sort of learning what not to do better each time, I suppose. But we've done. We've made how many shorts now? We've gone fishing, The Lighter, Dress Rehearsal, Surgery, and then this latest one, Say No, which we're about to do a crowdfunding campaign for. And then we've got a feature film called The Still, which is ready to go, which is a feature horror, which is our dad's last script before he passed away, which we were writing together. So we have that, and this theatre production that I've just directed called Strictly Murder, which is by my dad, which is on a big national tour, the Talking Scarlet. We're looking at developing that into a film as well, because it's quite filmic anyway, and it sort of made sense. And then we remember discussing and talking to him about it when he was alive. It would make quite an interesting film, and
now to expand the world a little bit. But
Mm.
it'd sort of reminiscent of the Hateful Eight is kind of what we're going for. We've got some outside elements, but essentially it's all contained to the one cabin.
So that's what we're doing at the moment, I suppose. We've got a short film, Say No, and then Strictly Murder and The Still, and looking after Dad's legacy, really, and discovering millions of ideas and scripts of what we should look at developing or not developing. Do we make a book? Do we not make a book? All these kind of things. So it's quite daunting.
Yes.
Even though it's lovely, it's quite daunting, I have to say. There's so much that he didn't, as much of stuff he made, there's as much that he didn't make. That we can go through.
Those unproduced scripts, etc. I mean, obviously that's how myself and Simon came to know you guys, some years ago now, was through your short films. It was actually the screening of The Lighter, which kind of was what I guess prompted this, one could say, quite sad episode in some respects, because I was just thinking it's not only this is not only really a tribute episode to Sir Roger Moore, but it's also, I guess, a tribute episode to your dad as well. Because we're getting to talk about him and his work, and we want to obviously respect that as well. Yeah. Sadly, one of the things Simon and I were saying about Movie Heaven, Movie Hell is, we could almost do a podcast just on the people who are sadly no longer with us, because they just seem to be, you realise you're reaching a certain age when your childhood heroes start to gradually die off, and it's very sad indeed. But we kind of look at it.
Was particularly bad.
Well, yes, heroes from stage, screen, front music, of the camera, behind the camera, music, absolutely. Towards the end of the year, I felt like my entire childhood was being stripped away from me when there was George Michael and Carrie Fisher and
Prince,
just bizarre, we could do one every time, but there are some that we talk about lots. in episodes, and obviously things such as the Bond movies, for example, are always being mentioned. So we felt that it's, it would be a good opportunity to put out a tribute for that, but B, it was the sort of the perfect opportunity to get you guys as guests on the show, which we've been trying to do.
We're very
for
privileged.
a while.
I do listen to some of your podcasts sometimes. I really like them. I think they're great, and I always thought, I wonder how can we get in? And then you called me, so it was sort of serendipity, really. So yeah, and I love the fact that it's become. The lighter was the way we met, and now that's full circle. Yeah,
Exactly.
Film does.
Yeah, yes, exactly what the film does. Yeah.
That's very true.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, for those who haven't seen The Lighter, it's kind of interesting because you get caught by surprise by Roger Moore's voice,
Yeah.
because he doesn't appear in the film, but his voice does, and because you've been following this one character and his friend, you don't quite expect it, so when it comes along, it does really lift the film up.
It made me howl with laughter, I have to say.
Well, a lot of people said, "God, you got a really good Roger Moore sound-alike there." I was like,
Really?
yeah, really. Well, funnily enough, but no, it was, and we put it out online again, and we put it on Vimeo. Basically, I think the next day or 2 days afterwards, because we thought, it'd be nice for anyone to listen to it to see it and hear his voice, and because he was sort of doing Bond again, it was a nice way to remember him. And we're very, very, very privileged to have worked with him, and
we didn't actually know we'd get that opportunity when we were writing. Well, when Sam was writing the script, we kind of thought about it, and we thought the character in his head is Bond, and we said, well, obviously our family does have a connection, because when he was filming The Saint, our dad was doing the Avengers, so they'd often play pranks on each other. But we thought there's a chance we can get him, so let's just go for it and write it. And obviously at this point he's living out in Switzerland as well, and not back in the UK that often. But as luck would have it, through our dad, we managed to get an introduction to him. And
he actually just wrote a letter without us knowing. And then he went, "Oh, by the way, Roger will do your film." And I was like, "What? We weren't even ready. I hadn't cast anything." I was like, so we got the voiceover way before we filmed it.
Oh, right.
Way before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because we were like, he said, "Well, Roger will meet you at the
Dorchester."
No, it wasn't Dorchester. It was that octagon-shaped hotel. I think it might have been called the Octagon. I don't know what it's called, but it's in Knightsbridge. But it's literally like a weird sort of octagon-shaped thing, and he'll give you, was it half an hour?
Half an hour, 40 minutes.
Yeah, and he gave us over an hour of his time, and he was lovely and all that stuff. But so we had that way up front, and then we were like, well, we've got this. We have to now. Build something around it, that whether we're ready or not. So it was it was nice that Dad sort of went, "Get on with it." Here you go.
So it was the catalyst to you making your film.
Absolutely,
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And how nervous were you going up to that hotel room?
Pretty nervous.
It wasn't bad. As soon as we got in, it was actually fine, because he's so relaxed and joking, because he's knows the same people we do in terms of like our dad and his stuntman Ray Austin and stuff. Like, we and C had a connection there, and then he would joke with us about various stories. And the funny thing is, like, we'd hear stories from Ray, and then Roger would tell them, but everything was reversed, so we've never been sure who's
telling the truth. It's hilarious. But the other thing, he immediately disarms you. I know it's really weird, but he looks like James Bond. I know that sounds insane, but because he was. But when you meet him, or if you ever met him, he was dressed so impeccably. Mm-hmm. He just looked like that true English. Everything was perfect. Yeah. He just looked amazing. And I remember saying, thank you very much, Roger, for agreeing to give us your time for this. How was your journey here? He was like, "Fucking dreadful." Yeah. That was the first thing he said. And the moment, when, your hero swears like that in front of you, it just disarms you. And then the rest of it was great. And I think, he was very self-deprecating, would always, put himself down as a terrible actor and say he was awful and all that kind of stuff. And I can tell you, the performance in The Lighter, I would say 80%, maybe more of it, is the first take. He just was brilliant, and he was very good. Like, he really committed to it, and there was no kind of joking around when he was doing it. Like, he really was very, very interesting, and he changed it around a bit. And our very first pieces of direction were to Roger Moore, but you didn't really need to direct him too much. You just sort of, say you want to try something else, or let's try it like this, or I don't remember having to direct him very much at all.
We didn't really. I mean, the only things we had to do a few more takes because he was getting very irritated. There was some people in the room next door who kept being loud every now and again, and so that would come in and he'd be saying half of his speech, and it'd be like, well, except for the bloody people next door, or fucking people next door, or whatever.
Yeah, we've got quite a few blue outtakes. Some blue takes.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you think about it, for our generation, I mean, growing up, he was Bond. I mean, and people sort of forget. He also did the most amount of consecutive Bond films of any of them to date, and he did 7 official ones. In one go. Obviously, Sean did 6, or he did 5. Then he went away. Then he came back, and then there was a long gap when he did the unofficial one. So Roger actually did the most and was Bond for the longest period of time. I mean, from 1972, 73, right the way through to 85. So you can't. You've got to give. People always say about who their favourite Bond is and whatever, but he was the one we grew up with, and he did the most so far. So,
and I do remember being disappointed with Timothy Dalton, even though he's actually when you look at them now, they're quite good films, but it's just the level of charm. Like Roger just oozed it. There's that wonderful story on. I'm sure people have seen the tweet. It was going viral, wasn't it, about the young boy who met him on the airport. Did you see that?
No.
So he this little boy before. You had the VIP lounges. He saw that James Bond was sat there, and he asked. It was with his granddad, and asked him to go over and can he meet James Bond. And he walked over and said, my grandson says that you're famous. Would you sign this? And he was like, oh, yes, of course. And signed it. Gave it back to him. And as the kid walked back to his chair, he realised that it definitely didn't say James Bond, and he was really heartbroken. And so his granddad went, but you said that your name is. He could read it, sort of said Roger Moore. He said, but I thought it said your name is James Bond. And he realised, and he called the boy over and said, he goes, I have to sign my name as Roger Moore because otherwise Blofeld might find out. Right? And signed it as James Bond and said they're working together. And then years later, when he was in his 30s, he met him because he was interviewing him, or he was a camera operator, I think, or something at a UNICEF thing. And he told him the story of when he met, and he sort of didn't remember really, and said it was all it was very nice that he got to meet James Bond and everything. And then later, in the interview, as they were leaving in the corridor, as he was passing him, he leant over to him and said, "Well, of course I remember our meeting." He goes, "But you never know if any of these cameramen are working for Blofeld."
Fantastic.
But that does sum him up. That's his humour, and he was so brilliant with people and so funny, funny, and like the stories of him and Dad telling him about him, and so naughty because they were making the Avengers in the same studio as the Saint. That's why Dad never wrote for the Saint, because he was too busy writing for the Avengers. But Patrick Macnee and Roger got on quite well, and they there was a lot of pranking that would go on in each other's each other's sets.
Well, I mean, they worked together on. License to Kill. View to a Kill.
View to a Kill, yeah. And Sherlock Holmes.
And Sherlock Holmes, yeah.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he was, known as kind of the funny Bond, if you like, out of them, I guess. And also, there are lots of stories that he was quite a prankster on set. Especially like with Desmond Llewellyn, who played Q. He used to play lots of practical jokes on. Apparently, they say in a lot of the interviews.
I can tell you one if you want about when he was on the Avengers. I can't remember who. I think it was someone had done something to him. Was that right?
Yeah, something on the drawers, I think.
Yeah, someone had done something to him on the Saint. I think it was probably Tara King or.
I know he put awful messages in each drawer. Every time he opened something, it said something disgusting.
To Roger
to put him off while he's doing the scene, so he'd keep discovering things that would.
I think it must have been Patrick Macnee that did it and put like things in drawers that like that little note saying you're a twat or whatever or something, and then, probably much worse. Than that.
I'm suddenly feeling really rude now, like we didn't introduce our really special guest.
Yes.
So we actually have Mrs. Clemens here.
Yes.
Hello.
who said she didn't want to be introduced, but now
Oh,
you've
you're
entered
in.
the conversation.
Well, yes,
you're
I
in.
had to correct them.
Yeah. Well, no,
Hey,
please,
it's
yeah.
been a
no.
lifetime's work, right?
Indeed,
Correcting them, yeah.
But he.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah,
anyway.
welcome. But he did so his prank. They were shooting an episode of the Avengers where it was down in a mortuary, I think, or and on lunch, everyone obviously cleared for lunch, and there was a coffin, and so Roger went and got in the coffin, and stayed in there all lunch, right? Probably been an hour or so, waiting for them all to come back. So they're ready to shoot. Everyone's there. Tara King's there, and then another action. He goes, and he just came out of the coffin. You know, so that will be on film somewhere. That will be a take somewhere where him messing around. You know.
Wow. No, it's good when they find those things. On some of the Blu-rays for the Bond films, they found a few sort of
Have they?
outtakes and added them. And also the other thing that Sir Roger was very good at doing was he would record commentaries for, well, not only his Bond films, but most films he was in. He spent the last few years going through and actually recording audio commentaries for them. And I listened to a few this week to sort of honour the man on some of the Bond films, because I know them very well. And it's interesting because when he introduces them, he says, this isn't really a commentary on what you're seeing. It's just kind of my memories of what was going on in my life around the filming of this.
That's
and
lovely.
yeah, I mean, it's he really embraced right up to his death. He embraced the Bond fans and the community, and we did a podcast with the guys from James Bond Radio, and they interviewed him for a special episode. So he was really supportive of it all right up to the end, and as you'd mentioned, of course he did fantastic work with UNICEF as well. Yeah. So he was a true gent.
He really
indeed.
was, yeah. He was a lovely man, and Dad was very fond of him. And you've met him quite a few times.
Yes, a few times. Yes, I mean you just didn't actually have to say anything. You just let him speak because he was so funny. I mean, I went to dinner. I think it was the White Elephant that used to be in Curzon Street, and we went for dinner there. There was a big round table, and he was just stood up and sort of welcomed everybody. We sat down and chatted and things, and he just took the floor and told joke after joke after joke, and we were absolutely, crying with laughter. He was just so funny, and well, obviously, as you've all been saying, so terribly charming.
Mm-hmm.
Looked absolutely immaculate, and I was quite young at the time, and I sort of, you think, oh, this gorgeous man. I'm happy at the same table as Roger Moore. It was wonderful. Wow. Yeah, he was great. No,
he was indeed, and it's very sad. But hey, what a life, what a legacy, the man had. So, I think we were going to talk about, obviously, the really interesting bits to hear your experiences of working with him, which is great. But we were going to talk about some of our, if you like, movie heaven picks for Sir Roger, and always kind of like the guests to go first. So, is there a particular film? I know you've mentioned a couple that you want to talk about.
We just thought. I played Sherlock Holmes on stage not too long ago, and so I was researching and watching a lot of Sherlock Holmes movies just to get a feel for the character and everything. And I came across, I didn't realise that Roger Moore played Sherlock Holmes once in Sherlock Holmes in New York with Patrick Macnee as Watson and John Huston in it. And
it's Moriarty.
Moriarty.
And Charlotte Rampling.
Yeah.
As Irene Adler. Yeah, I know it was.
And I just thought, why has no one seen this? And I watched it, and yes, it's a little camp and creaky, but I thought he was great as a Sherlock Holmes. I thought he was quite modern in the way that he was doing it. It was a little close to Bond, but I thought that I would maybe talk about that one a little bit, or discuss that one, because I just thought that was probably the most recent Roger film that I've seen, even though it's probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago that I saw it. I haven't actually watched a Roger Moore film for a while. Actually, I'm sure now they're going to be. They are on all the time.
Yeah.
And but whenever a Bond film comes on, it's Roger. It's like Jaws. Once they're on, you just leave them on. You just go, well, it's because it's nostalgic, isn't it? But this was so interesting because it was something that I didn't know existed, and I just thought what a wonderful the thing is, knowing that Patrick Macnee and Roger Moore had this relationship and had, I just thought it was perfect. I thought they really worked very, very well together and were very complementary. I mean, Patrick, sort of had to take the back seat a little bit, but he'd already done that in a Bond film.
Yes.
So they already had that.
Well, he made his Watson very sort of Nigel Bruce-ish, didn't he? He definitely sort of took a leaf from that book. But I saw it recently. I'm quite a sort of Sherlock Holmes fan. In fact, I'm quite envious that you've got to play him. The
only reason was that we were going to direct it. That was going to be our directorial theatre debut. It was Dad's play Holmes and the Ripper.
Okay.
He wrote a stage version of Sherlock Holmes investigating Jack the Ripper, and then he passed away in January 2015, and it was going to be going on in 2015. And the producer, the same producer of Strictly Murder, said, well, I think it would be a lovely tribute if you played Sherlock. And I was like, well, no one is ever going to ask me to play Sherlock ever again. Yeah. So I'm going to say yes, even if I was quite young. But we did something where we made my Watson was in his 50s and I was in my 30s. So it was a slightly different.
Kind of like what they do with Sherlock now.
Yeah.
A little contemporised version.
Exactly.
Or even the Robert Downey Jr. Movies. But
that's why I was researching it and looking at it. It was because I was like, God, how am I going to play this?
Yeah. Well, it is interesting because obviously that was a film he made between. There was obviously a gap between Man with the Golden Gun and Spy Who Loved Me, and that was one of the films that he did in between that. And what's interesting is it's got all of these sort of, various tropes from the canon of Sherlock Holmes, but at the same time it's kind of its own thing removed from the canon of work. And obviously there's this whole thing about the potential son, which is obviously Roger Moore's son in real life, which obviously is completely non-Sherlock Holmes. That's completely bringing Bond to Sherlock. but it is an entertaining movie nonetheless.
I really was. I was prepared to think this is going to be all. I was like, well, if we've never seen it, it's going to be horrendous. Obviously, they've tried to bury it, or it's just not done any business. But then, I thought it was unfair that it didn't get more.
Well, I think it was a TV film.
Actually.
So, I think it's actually.
It's quite good.
Fun.
It's good fun.
Yeah.
It is good fun, and I think because you pretty much know everyone in it.
Yeah.
All these great actors and John Huston, which is hilarious. But he was quite interesting. It was good. It was sort of a, having sort of Steed and Bond together in that world was quite fun. I just thought. I mean, obviously, maybe it has a little more resonance because of our heritage with the Avengers and everything. But I thoroughly enjoyed it and thought it was if people are fans of Sherlock Holmes or Roger Moore, we should absolutely see. I thought he would have made quite a nice Sherlock Holmes if they'd done a series of if he'd had a chance to do more than one film. I thought he would be quite good. He wasn't as he was comedic in it, but not as comedic as he is in Bond. He wasn't as sort of, because that's what he said about Bond. I remember we met him. He said you can't play a spy like this seriously, because he comes into a bar and says, "Hello, my name's James Bond." He doesn't even attempt to have a pseudonym or a code name.
Yeah.
And he goes,
the same
spy is in. He's in this hotel and he's in numbered 49. Yeah, he's just there. You can go and kill him. So that's why he played it with that level of humour, because he thought that was his reasoning, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think. But in the other film, I suppose
it's Man with the Golden Gun is the other one. I mean, instantly, as you said earlier, for me it's between The Spy Who Loved Me and Man with the Golden Gun. But Man with the Golden Gun just sort of, I don't know, sort of just took it for me because I just found the kind of settings and the characters within it and the people he has interactions with were so enjoyable. Like, I love the Nick Nack character and the hilarious moment where he puts him in a suitcase and I think he's thrown him overboard, but actually he hasn't. And obviously you've got Christopher Lee, another fantastic actor.
Great bad guy.
And they just, they've got such a great chemistry together. And I just felt like out of most of the Bonds, I felt like they bounced off each other a lot better. And it's a really amazing character to play, like Scaramanga with the, being the assassin, it's cool. And you've got, and even the sort of Western elements to it, the sort of standoff with the, let's see who's a better marksman and all that. And there's just, to me, there's just lots of really nice little moments within that I just really kind of enjoyed, and it stuck with me more than any of the others. I mean, Spy Loved Me has always stuck with me mainly because of the submarine car, and I just loved it, and I was just a toy as a kid, and I always that and obviously the Aston
Also
Martin.
Caroline was in it.
Yeah, and Carolyn
Monroe.
Monroe.
We know very
I
well.
love Carolyn Monroe.
We can get her for you. If you want to have a
I
chat.
can get Martin Beswick as well.
Yeah, Martine Bezic as well.
She was in 2.
She was in 2. Yeah, so they'd happily talk to you.
Right, because I went to end of last year. I went to Sardinia and actually managed to find a bit of beach, and I drove the hire car that I wasn't supposed to drive on the beach down and recreated the scene. Only it wasn't quite as cool. Instead of being a Lotus Esprit, it was like a Citroen C1.
Brilliant.
But I found a bit of wood that doubled as the fish and threw it out the window as I went past. And
Filmed it on your GoPro. Yeah.
Well, it just had to be done, didn't it? So, but interesting. Our last tribute episode that we did was Sir Christopher Lee, and I talked quite a lot on that one about Man with the Golden Gun, because that was actually my pick.
Yeah.
Because for the same reason you just said, I thought he was a fantastic Bond villain. And often the success of a Bond film sort of does rely on how strong the villain is as well as obviously the
of course,
the Bond girls.
Yeah, I mean that's the most important. That's I mean, if we go a bit off tangent, but that's the reason why so many Marvel films, people think the best ones have been the ones with Loki, because he's been the best developed villain, and without a villain of equal caliber and with the backstory as the heroes, it's just not as interesting. So that's very important, and Christopher Lee did that fantastically well. It's a really interesting, crafted villain, and a different kind of villain than we've seen before in a Bond film.
You kind of want them both to win in a way. There's like it's that classic.
And of course, he's played Sherlock Holmes as well.
Yes,
hasn't he?
yeah. So many people have.
Have you met him? Did you meet Christopher Lee?
No.
I've met Christopher.
Oh.
Yeah. I went to Ray Austin's
Did you fancy
house.
him as well?
No, I actually didn't. He was, I have to say, it sounds awful, but he was so boring. He was the most boring man I think I've ever met. He sort of sat there and chatted, and it was just, he had no sort of sense of humour. It was, Brian and I sort of sat there, and I said to Brian, "Does he was like this?" And he said, "Yes." And, but I mean, he just talked. I mean, Roger talked, but he was terribly entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Christopher, just like the sound of his voice, this lovely, beautiful voice, but just kept talking and talking and talking, and I was sort of almost nodding off.
You can see that, I think, when he comes back on I think it's the Hobbit film, first Hobbit, when he comes back. And and Peter Jackson had to shoot a section of it here in England.
Yeah.
And he's telling story after story, and you can see Peter Jackson there. I think on the making of, they're all like, "We've really got to get on with filming," because it's just going on and on and on and on.
But then he's got loads of
He's
stories
got loads.
to
He's
tell,
worked
hasn't he?
because he's worked with everyone. He's worked
Yeah.
with him. But I think it's a good point. That he is a well developed bad guy. But I feel like Man with the Golden Gun, for some reason, was the Bond that I just saw the most. It was the one that I always caught or that was on. Moonraker I saw a lot as well, but I suppose that was around the Star Wars period, and they were trying to do their Star Wars thing. But Man with the Golden Gun would just seem to be on a lot, and so I watched it a lot. And you have that sort of bit when they're in the what do I want to say? Not the maze, that sort of games room.
Yeah, the mirrors room.
The mirrors room,
Yeah,
and all that stuff's great. I mean, it's ridiculous, but it's great,
Oh,
and it stops it being about a guy wanting to, everything is about blowing the world up or doing something that's so. But it became a bit more mano a mano with that, which I think is quite nice. Like the what's it?
No, he's not going after armies or anything. He's going after one man. Who's
Well, yeah, I've spoken before about how I thought that they could have made it far more interesting if it had been just Scaramanga and Bond just on that island, going mano a mano, instead of having the whole parties in Japan, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the partly racist sheriff and and all that sort of stuff. Which there was a lot of cringeworthy stuff in Mountain with the Golden Gun, but there's cool stuff as well.
But I mean, that was one of the things I think that sort of differentiated the Roger Moore Bond to Sean Connery was the fact that you had some of these repeating characters. So you had the sheriff who was in Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you had Jaws, who came back from Spy Who Loved Me and was in Moonraker.
Yeah, whereas prior to that, you just had Felix Leiter, who was a different actor in every one of Sean's. There was not one repeat of Felix being the same guy.
Blofeld was always played by a different actor.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean, the thing that Roger did with Bond that was great as well is whereas, you know, with Lazenby, they tried to sort of make him look and act and be like Sean, whereas Roger just totally took it in his own direction. And when you think about it, until Daniel Craig, he was the first actual Englishman to play Bond. All the others were British or, well, Australian. But you know, Roger was the true English gent. You know.
Yeah. And it's funny because Pierce Brosnan, he mentioned, didn't he, recently, that his sort of inspiration really was Roger. You know,
and you can see that.
You can see it. I mean, and Pierce doesn't have as much charm, I think, as Roger, and that's why they fail more than Roger. I think the double entendres become a bit tasteless. Whereas at least in Roger's, yes, it's all a bit racist, it's all a bit misogynist, and it's all kind of a bit, you know, tongue in cheek. It really is tongue in cheek.
It was tongue in cheek. And I also think it was a sign of the times. I mean, the Roger Moore films, the Bond films, are kind of ridiculous, but that was sort of that light 70s mood, wasn't it? Whereas by the time they got to Brosnan, particularly following Timothy Dalton, you know, the world had got a lot more serious, so they were harder to pull off those one-liners. But
well, it's sort of the birth of all those kind of one-liners. Wasn't it? I don't know who, but I always think of sort of the king of the one-liner who began was Clint Eastwood. He sort of started it, I think. I might be wrong, but that's where I felt like it's begun, and then Arnie has sort of took it on on a completely new level. But we don't have that really too much anymore, like the way that they used to.
There's a few actors who get away.
Ryan Reynolds gets away with it.
Ryan Reynolds.
In a different way.
Dwayne Johnson can pull it off. He's probably the closest we have to a modern day Arnie nowadays. Like, he's got a lot of charm and obviously massively built and does have some hilarious lines.
But it's changed a lot, isn't it? That kind of action here has changed because he would have to be your buff now.
Filmmaking in general has changed a lot.
Completely, yeah.
I mean, we remember a lot of the lines, say, from Arnie films, but I can't remember a single line that Dwayne Johnson's ever said.
No.
So,
but also, I think and this is obviously goes beyond just talking about Roger, but I think the difference for film industry now is that we don't watch anything twice.
This is right. It sounds almost like a Bond title. We don't watch anything twice. But no, I mean that's very true. I always think, why can I never remember stuff? Now, whereas I remember all the stuff when I was a kid. But the stuff when I was a kid, the Bond films, the Star Wars films, the Indiana Jones films, whatever, I would watch over and over and over again. Whereas nowadays, if I'm really impressed by something I see, I might watch it again, maybe. But there's so much material out there now, film and television wise and theatre and whatever.
I think also, as adults, we like variety. As a kid, you just love, if you love something, then you really love it. It's like that one toy that you're always going to play with. So there's always going to be that one film that you're always going to watch. I mean, I remember watching Ghostbusters like every day during a summer holiday.
Hence why you get on with Anthony Bueno. So.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just. I mean, we don't have the time. I mean,
no, it's true.
I mean, we've got jobs. I mean, we're recording
well, even doing the homework for these podcasts is like,
absolutely.
Do you know I'm driving me mad. There's a film that Roger was in that I loved. I can't remember the name of it, and he was a sea captain. Sort of lived in a lighthouse.
North Sea Hijack.
That's it.
Yes,
Thank
where he
you.
played. He was into
grumpy.
cats rather
had
than
hundreds of cats.
girls.
Yes, that's it. That's right.
No entendres there, guys.
No.
But yeah,
I was trying to find it. You
yeah,
found it first.
I thought you probably know which one.
yeah, no, that's a great. I've not seen that in some years.
No, I
but
haven't, but
that
I
was a
remember
good
when I
one.
saw it, I thought, gosh, you're good in this, because he wasn't anything, remotely like Bond in it.
No,
He
no,
was
not
really
at all.
grumpy.
Yes, yeah, that's right. That's right. And he says right at the beginning, "I hate girls." I was like, it's like, really? Okay,
Really? Have you seen your career? Yeah.
you need to Roger Moore. Anyway, so yeah, but no, Man with the Golden Gun is a great choice. So Spy Who Loved Me. I mean, again, it's hard to. Some feel. I mean, I was listening to the commentary actually by Roger, and he feels that the Spy Who Loved Me was probably when it became his Bond, and the reason he said that is he said, for example, in The Man with the Golden Gun, where he has to like twist Maud Adams' arm and says that he'll break it. He sort of felt that stuff was very much written for Sean rather than him. And, by the time by the time Lewis Gilbert came on for Spy Who Loved Me, they had a slightly different take on it. And it was kind of almost, because of the whole Broccoli changeover, it was almost kind of a reboot period, actually.
Yeah. Well, I always thought that Octopussy was an apology to Maud Adams. We sorry we did this to you in Man with the Golden Gun. So here you are. You've got like the named role.
Yeah.
In this film.
And I love Octopussy. It's
Oh,
one of
yeah,
my
it's great.
favourites.
Yeah,
And of course, you mentioned earlier that you were going to talk about Moonraker as well, which I think a lot of people slag Moonraker off, but my God, that film's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a kid, I was a big sci-fi fan. So what more could you get with Bond in space?
That would have been the pitch.
Well, it was.
in
I think
space.
it literally was,
was,
because at the end of Spy Who Loved Me, it does actually say that James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only. Okay, because that was back when they were naming the next films. But of course, he didn't come back in that. He came back in Moonraker, which was obviously, as you'd already pointed out, a reaction to Star Wars and the fact that people wanted sci-fi films, etc. And Moonraker, I watched it. I watched it with his commentary actually, but Derek Meddings, who's no longer with us as well, sadly, but the visual effects in Moonraker are absolutely fantastic, considering
Apart from the snake.
apart from the rubber snake.
Apart from the snake.
Yeah.
This is one of those films where HD doesn't do it.
No, that's true. No, but the space scenes. I mean,
Yes.
they couldn't afford to do opticals on it, like with Star Wars, etc. And obviously, it was pre-CGI.
Yeah.
So what they did was they would literally wind the film back in the camera and keep exposing it. And I think they exposed it 96 times for that space battle around the space station, which is risky mechanically anyway. But I mean, what artistry and patience to pull off something that looks that fantastic.
I now have way more respect for it. But that's the thing, that's what I was saying before to you when we were talking downstairs at Strictly Mad about directing, is that when you understand how these things are done, and when I don't worry as a director too much about what people think of it, because I know what it cost or didn't cost, or the problems that we had that went out there to make it. So
it's very easy for other people to be an armchair director. We've all had it. Somebody said, "Well, why didn't you have this shot in it?" Or why? You weren't there. You don't know what our day was like.
Yeah, why didn't you have a helicopter?
Yeah.
I don't know. Why didn't we have a helicopter?
helicopter,
Yeah.
Exactly.
You got any money for a helicopter?
No, and I mean the things they pulled off as well, like that opening sequence in Moonraker with the aerial flight, thing. It's just amazing. That they did that for real, apart from the sort of close-ups. But the rest of it, they found a way to achieve that, and a way to shoot that, and a way to.
Well, that's the
do
nice
those
thing
stuff.
of these, the old films, is that it feels more exciting and real because the stunts are real. I mean, obviously there are a lot of films that do a lot of great stunts, but to give you an example, Mad Max, I know they went through all this effort to make the car chase real and everything, but for me it didn't feel dangerous or that exciting because they've thrown all these extra CGI elements around that I looked at the original Mad Max and I was like, that looks amazing, and there's nothing, there's no extra elements. And this you throw all that, and I was just
especially
like,
Mad Max 2, which
Yeah, the
Oh,
Road,
Mad
the
Max
Road
2
Warrior.
is
Yeah.
Road
I mean,
Warrior.
the thing, you know, the stunt in Mad Max 2 where the guy does the motorcycle and he just flips like this. I mean, that was a total accident, and the guy did end up in hospital. And I'm sure nobody on Fury Road ended up in hospital.
No, with it, I mean, it's so difficult to. I mean, to do those kind of things. I mean,
Well,
even
health and safety,
yeah, health and
yeah.
safety. I mean,
Yeah.
even where we are here in this theatre,
but they've done it with
the guns
that.
in
They've
the
hidden
guns in
behind
this play.
CGI.
Yeah.
We have to. There's all these forms and everything you have to sign,
Yeah, of
the
course.
Terrorism Act and everything, but just to have replica weapons.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
unbelievable amounts of stuff to So it's so much more difficult to do those things.
Yeah.
I mean, and interestingly, our family friend Ray Austin, he was Roger Moore's stunt double for a long time.
Right.
So they knew each other very well. But yeah, and, most of those actors, they never do any of that stuff. They're not going to break a sweat for that. They get the stuntman to do it.
I was
Whereas
going to say,
now,
Roger wasn't really renowned for doing his own stunts, was he?
No,
To knock
bless
his
him.
pretty face, wouldn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
but Dad always used to say that he really looked after himself. He didn't go out and get absolutely trashed or anything. He understood that, the way that he looked and the way that he was his bread and butter. So he sort of, took care of himself and was never a major party animal in that way. So, I think that takes a lot of,
Restraint.
yeah,
Nice.
a lot of it, particularly in our industry. Our industry is just full of, as you know, of parties and going out and,
Really? Oh,
Really?
I'm in the wrong-
No, you're in the wrong place, mate.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, I've clearly not made it.
You've
But-
never been to Cannes, have you?
I have, yes. But I mean, that was the thing when he first started playing Bond, and I discovered that Roger Moore was actually older than Sean Connery. I was like, really? Because I thought the reason he'd taken over, when I was younger, was because they got a younger actor in to play it. So you're right. I mean, he really did sort of take care of himself and look fantastic in Live and Let Die. It's
Which is the one that's terrible with the greatest opening sequence ever with the parachute? What's that one?
Spy Love.
Spy Love Me.
Spy
That,
Love
I mean,
Me,
and he will always. I still think that is the greatest,
Yeah.
piece of that. That's what everyone thinks of. I think with Bond is the scale.
and the Union Jack
Yeah.
parachute
I mean, it's
is
just-
amazing. Well, first of all, again, the secret agent in a banana yellow ski suit with a red backpack,
Saying James Bond
and then
almost.
a parachute that opens out into the Union Jack. I mean,
It's
it's
fantastic.
it's ridiculous in itself, but wonderful. Yeah.
Well, they sort of even when, in the Olympics. I mean, when they did the Daniel Craig thing, jumping out. So it was the Queen jumping.
Yes.
It's Queen.
The
But
Queen.
even that's really Spy Love Me, isn't
It
it?
is.
That's how I think influential he was as Bond. And I'm going to do something now, because obviously Dad wrote the pilot for the Persuaders. That is the original script of the pilot of the Persuaders, right there,
Wow.
which is pretty cool.
If only we weren't just audio.
This is to really tantalise audio. Well, that's it there. Yeah.
It's like, here's the Hope Ruby.
Here's that.
Honestly, no.
Yeah. But yeah, so
Wow, how cool is that?
his dad wrote the pilot for it, so that was back in, I think, when was that?
Early 70s, was
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Very early 70s, yeah, because it was
Yeah.
after Alison. So
It was a bit of,
1970.
I've not seen many of the Persuaders, but it was a bit of a, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a bit of an image change for Roger from the Saint
Yes,
to the,
yeah,
to the
He was a
Persuaders.
baron,
yeah.
wasn't he,
Yeah.
or something like that. He was
Mhm.
So I
aristocracy.
can't help but notice that the name of the show is very different to how it ended up. Friendly Persuaders.
Yeah, Friendly Persuaders.
Well, why did the name change?
I have
or-
no idea.
No idea.
Like
Guessing
basically-
they weren't that friendly. And
Well, no, I think Dad wasn't too. I mean, by seeing the amount of work that he has written that has not been produced, you can see that he was not precious about anything. He'd just get on with it and change it to get it out. He loved having material out there.
Mhm.
So, and I mean, there's so many title changes of his plays and films all the time. I mean, the what was it called? The Professionals originally was going to be called the A Squad.
Interesting.
And we
Yeah.
said that's a ridiculous name. No one ever call that. And 6 months later, we have the A-Team,
Yeah.
which came out.
Mm.
And then
Used to love The Professionals.
yeah,
Yeah.
great.
There's a great Blu-ray out of that, actually.
Yes, I know, we've got it. Yeah, they
Yes.
send we
You
that's
get
one that
that
we get
for
we get the
free.
Blu-ray. Yeah, we don't get very much for free, but we do. Yeah, we get that one. But
Was he involved in the? I never ever saw any of them, but there was a reboot series, the
Yeah.
New Professionals
Yeah,
or whatever. Was
he
he
did
involved in that as well?
yeah,
When was that? It was
That was
in
in the
80s.
98, I think.
Oh right.
Yeah,
okay.
which unfortunately probably would have done better because I mean, in terms of scale and production, it was $1 million per episode, so it was
Wow.
they
Shot on 35.
shot on 35, so it looked great, and they had great set pieces. But at the time, the producers decided to go for a slightly higher purchase price with Sky, as opposed to go to the BBC,
Right.
which at
No,
this
ITV wasn't.
Oh, it was ITV,
sorry, ITV.
But at this point, obviously, very few people had Sky. It was much more, I'd say maybe 5-10% of the country probably had Sky. So, it didn't. It's
make
it's
an
not.
impact.
It's not like it is now. If they did that now, then it would be all over. Video on demand and catch up, and you would get the screen time. But that it kind of had its showing, and then kind of nothing else happened.
Oh, what a shame.
And Edward
And what-
Woodward
was it? I was going to say,
George
was it a sequel or a complete reboot?
No,
or
it was.
what-
They weren't called Bodie and Doyle. They were called
No.
Keel and Curtis.
Right.
So they were new agents. And what was his name?
Cowley?
No, Cowley was the original. What was his name?
Oh, Gordon Jackson, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
Gordon Jackson
In
played
it?
Cowley, but Edward Woodward's character. I'm trying to remember what he was another.
Oh, Edward Woodward was in it.
Edward Woodward was playing the
Oh,
the Gordon Jackson role. In fact,
Oh,
that's-
fantastic.
I've got to. It's a good name. I mean, Dad did. He wrote good names. He had good character
Usually
names.
short because he didn't want to type long names.
No, absolutely.
But that really is
In fact,
hilarious.
you just had to do it by...
Brian always had a normal, what I call an old-fashioned typewriter. He
Right.
never used a computer or anything like that.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, it's not loading now. But I want to
Oh,
find
it's
out. But it's a good name. But it was it was a good series, and they shot abroad. They shot in South Africa. They shot all over the world, and it was a real shame that it didn't do the business that it probably would have done today. But I know that Dad was disappointed that, for example, Cal Webber, one of the boys was Canadian. And he played it with a Canadian accent. He didn't play it British, and he didn't. He was never shown an episode of The Professionals.
What?
He'd never seen anything of it. So they had gone into it not knowing, what was going on. So, there were. It wasn't treated, I think, with as much care as the original series was. Although the original series, there was a lot of problems on it. I mean, they had lots of issues getting it done and out there, and it wasn't critically well acclaimed by lots of people, and some people, but the public loved it because it was gritty and raw, and it was a bit, violent in places. I mean, when you look at it now, it's hilarious how you're like, really, is that but then it was kind of a big deal.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think The Professionals, the original Professionals, was where Pierce Brosnan started.
Pierce
He had
Brosnan,
a small role in.
I'm sure he
some of
was,
them,
but
or one of
also
them or
Martin
something.
Campbell started in The Professionals as
Yeah,
the
right.
director.
Okay.
So that was one of his early directing pieces. I can't remember the episode now. But Harry Malone was the Edward Woodward character. Malone, that was it. Harry
Thanks,
Malone.
IMDb.
Thank you, mate. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember it. I did remember it began with M. I was going Marker, Malone.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
Are they available?
yeah, but
Yeah.
it'd be really hard. I mean, that was the other thing. Is that it was a shame that they didn't seem to get even a DVD release or anything for. I mean, you have to really search for it. And it's the New Professionals.
Right.
It's like the New Avengers. That's kind of how they did it. But,
Mhm. Makes
so,
sense.
yeah.
Makes sense.
Can I ask, what did Brian think of the film of the Avengers?
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
absolutely. Hated it. I mean, he refused to watch it for many, many years, but obviously, eventually had to watch it. I mean, the one thing he said is he didn't mind the casting in terms of, Steed and Mrs. Pugh.
He didn't particularly like. He thought Ray. I think Ray Fiennes was wrong. I think Uma Thurman is about at that time was the right casting for.
Yeah.
But she's got that. She can do it. I mean, she's the bride. She can do. Do you know what I mean? She's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, not at that point, but
Yeah.
but yeah, no, he was actually very happy when it completely bombed.
Yeah.
Not because he wanted to see his,
Well,
his legacy going down in flames, but it was just the principle of it, that when they were making it, he didn't get a single phone call or anything. I mean, by this point, he'd sold the rights, so they didn't need to, but he just thought, well, considering I'm the main driving force behind the entire series, you'd think you'd at least consult me or ask my opinion on these
But
things.
it shows in the film
Yeah.
that he never got a call because the film just didn't know what it was doing, did it?
I
It
think
was
the
like,
only scene that was sort of remotely like it was when they were around the round table, all the storms over each
Yeah.
head. I think that.
And he had ideas of how you could make that better.
Yes, he did.
And it's funny, I found the Avengers movie that he wrote in about '84 with Dennis Spooner today. Like, I knew that, and he's done a novel. And these things have not been produced or done before. So we've got of what he would have written. We have that, but Dad really took over when Diana Rigg was involved. That from then on, pretty much it's him and it's his brain, and he, like I suppose Vince Gilligan with Breaking Bad, it's his thing, and even into the New Avengers. So to not even consult the person to see what makes it what it is, what are the rules that you've set out, like for example, there can be no extras. You can't have normal people walking around because it doesn't fit in the world.
in the world of,
You know, so there are little things that they totally broke and changed. And when there's an American episode of they tried to do the Avengers in America, which Dad wrote an episode for, and they broke all the rules, and of course it didn't work. It was called Escapade. It was in pilot season,
Right.
and it didn't go anywhere, unfortunately. You can see why
It missed the point.
it missed. Yeah, the Americans didn't get it. I mean, they love the original series because it was so quintessentially British.
So quirky British, as they
Well, look,
put it.
there you go.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Yep.
That's all right.
I was to say, it's like what they did to Red Dwarf when they tried to do 2 pilots over there, and absolutely just
Bombed.
bombed. Yeah.
Didn't work.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard when because obviously you want to give it a fresh twist, but having new blood all the time is not always completely the way. I mean, in terms of, because you've got to work out what made it what it was. And only interestingly recently, listening to a lot of I think the beauty of, obviously we're lucky that Dad did so many interviews and TV things that we can always go back and see him and listen to him, which not now. I'm sure there'll be a movie very soon which will just be someone's life purely from all the videos they've uploaded on Facebook from birth to death. When we've had Facebook that long, when was it 2004? When we're in 2054 or whatever, that there'll just be a movie which will be cut together of someone's life, which didn't exist back then. But having the ability to go back and look at Dad's interviews is kind of interesting. And the thing, again, the essence that we discovered of The Professionals is him saying what you want is you want the audience to tune in, to be listening to the dialogue of the 2 boys in the car. You want to be more interested in that than in the action. And once you've got to that part, then you've got a hit. But if you're having to just do action, you're not going to go anywhere. And I think that was also the problem with the New Professionals, is that the producer wanted action without developing that
The buddy
thing, which you really need. I mean, the one I really think of recently, very differently, modern though, would be The Wire with McNulty and Bunk. Do you know what I mean? I mean, we look forward to their drunk scenes round the car more than anything. It was just hilarious and very real, and and they were the bits that you were like, oh, this is going to be great.
They kind of hit it in the Lethal Weapon series
Yeah,
as well,
yeah,
with
absolutely,
the
yeah.
Murtaugh and Riggs.
I meant
thing.
just sort of fairly recently.
But no, absolutely. Well, let me ask you if you've seen this one. My pick for Roger Moore, Heaven, was, not a lot of people have seen this one, and it was The Man Who Haunted Himself. Did any of you see that one?
Yeah.
It rings a bell.
Yeah,
the title. I don't know.
I have seen it a long time ago. I would need to see it again
I'll
to
tell you
talk
what,
about that.
I'll tell you what,
You mentioned it, and I really want to see it now.
This to me is Roger Moore's best acting by a long shot. I really do think this. This was made in 1970, but I remember growing up in the 80s, ITV down in the south where I'm from used to have a season called Murder Mystery Suspense. This is where I saw Duel. This is where I saw Psycho for the first time. You know, all this sort of thing. Possibly Somewhere in Time. I don't know. But anyway, they had this on one evening, and it was, you know, oh, it's this guy who played Bond, you know, and it is amazing because essentially it was directed by Basil Dearden. And produced by Brian Forbes, who was...
So we knew,
I was going to say, I'm sure there's got to be some connection here with some of this. And it was taken from a novel that was made out of an episode of the first season of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, that Alfred Hitchcock actually directed, called The Case of Mr. Pelham, which then got written into The Strange Case of Mr. Pelham. And this film is... Seriously, I'm not going to say any more if you haven't seen it. But check it out, because Roger, he has a breakdown in it. He plays two completely different characters in it. He has an emotional breakdown in it, and I think
Brian thought that was his best acting. You know, in that completely different from the Bond genre.
Yeah. Oh, it is so good. I mean, it's a you know, it's a... Has he got a doppelganger, or is he just going insane? And it's one of it asks that sort of question. And you know, I've actually it's inspired something that I've written. It's so much that I've called the character Pelham, because I love this film so much, and it's got that sort of thematic thing. And annoyingly, you know, when you make work and then nothing ever happens with it. About 15 years ago, I was in a film called Double Walker, and I've Googled it. It's not available anywhere, unfortunately, where I had to play my own doppelganger and end up having a sort of fight with myself in a nightclub. And again, I was so into it just because I loved this Roger Moore film so much. And I was like, oh, yes, I get it. I know what you want to do with this. And it was just such fun.
You know, it sounds very much like that Jake Gyllenhaal film that came out a few years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Source?
No. It's when he sees a doppelganger of himself.
Yes. Oh Lord! You see, this is what we were talking about earlier, where you can't remember stuff.
It's by the director who did Arrival, and he's doing the new.
Denis Villeneuve.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what the film's called. I've actually got it. I mean,
I didn't like it.
It's not as good as
it's
The Man Who Haunted Himself. No way. But,
I'd love to see that. I just obviously had a quick IMDb. And Hildegard Niels in it is married to Brian Blessed, isn't she?
She was at the time, I think.
I did my very first acting job with her.
Oh, well, there you go. You see, everything's connected. Everything's
just
connected.
a play reading. It was just a reading.
Right, the name of the film is Enemy.
Enemy.
That's
right.
I know. Now you said it. I haven't seen it.
Well, I mean, I've seen Enemy, but and you're right.
Yeah.
Thematically, it's probably quite similar. But no, trust me, Man Who Haunted Himself. Seriously, Roger is best. He actually did it was his first commentary as well. He and Brian Forbes did the commentary
on the DVD or the Blu-ray.
On the DVD, and it's on the Blu-ray as well, I think. Very interesting and very weird that this was before he played Bond. Yeah, he has a line where he mentions James Bond in it, which is quite funny.
I love when that happens, like Danny DeVito in Romancing the Stone.
Oh yes,
yeah.
Talking about Batman.
Or Christopher Walken in Dead Zone.
Or Christopher Nolan with The Following, with the Batman
symbol.
The
Batman
symbol on the
Apparently that wasn't that on the load, because I listened to the commentary Nolan said on that, and of course he was doing this all on a sort of Bolex camera at the weekends and stuff, and that door just happened to be like that.
Amazing.
And he couldn't repaint it or anything because they had no budget. And how bizarre is that? The Batman logo is on there, and then
amazing, isn't it?
Less than a decade later, there he is directing it. Yeah.
I just want to say, when I was looking through Roger Moore's filmography, I noticed that outside of Bond, I was more familiar with his TV work than I was with his film work.
Not the Saint.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. I would have thought that after doing Bond would have propelled his film career, but it didn't to the extent like say Sean Connery or Pierce Brosnan or
Yeah, because I mean, he
Even
did
Timothy
do a lot of
Dalton.
stuff,
Did
didn't he? But
Ivanhoe, didn't he? It was a series.
but he did do a lot of
TV series.
television because, of course, he had The Saint and he had.
Yeah.
Way back, he was in Maverick, apparently, according to my dad. He
Really?
was a big Western
Oh, okay.
fan of that era back in the
Well, wasn't he in
50s or
the old
whatever.
50s movies? Wasn't he part of like Rank or MGM? He had a deal that he was a very
What,
very
contract?
good looking young man, and he
Yes.
ended up acting with some incredible people. Like and I remember seeing I think him talking to someone like Piers Morgan or something about it, and like he was absolutely amazed that he was in these films with these people at the time when he started.
But he got cast into Ivanhoe as a series. I think off the back of one of those films that he was in is a very small part.
Maverick.
But,
Have a look. Check it out. That's the beauty of this.
Oh, I mean,
internet,
it is.
isn't it?
I mean,
But it does kill the brain.
It does.
You just
The
go, oh,
memory
memory,
goes
yeah,
because
yeah.
you've got it in your
No.
pocket.
Yeah.
But the what was I going to say? The other thing is I need to go back and again more stuff to add to the list.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I haven't really watched, if I'm honest, much of The Saint because for me growing up, Ian Ogilvy was the Saint,
Yeah.
which even that was reruns at the time. That was like the Return of the Saint.
Return of the Saint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I definitely caught the Roger Moore, the Saint.
Hmm.
I know the other guy you're talking about, but I don't remember much of the series that he did. But I
Right.
do remember more of Roger Moore doing the Saint.
Right. Hmm.
Well, they do run those quite a bit,
But,
don't
yeah.
they? From
They do,
Catfish,
yeah,
don't
yeah,
they?
yeah. That's true. But no, I mean, it is a remarkable canon of work
Absolutely.
that he has there. So just back to sorry, I couldn't stop thinking about Carolyn Monroe. So did you know it through
I wonder
was it
what-
the Sinbad movies
Yes.
then? That,
Well,
that
Dad.
you're-
Golden
No,
Voice.
it was Captain Crowell's Vampire Hunter because Dad
Oh.
cast her in that.
Yeah.
No, she was actually.
Well, she was-
She had to be in it.
Yeah, she had to be in it. She-
because
yeah,
the
Hammer
Hammer
wa-
said want this girl in
Ah,
this episode.
right, yeah. Yeah.
Because the
Brian had
gypsy woman in it was written a lot more fiery, and Caroline's not like that, and so Dad rewrote it to kind of fit her personality. But he got on really well with her and thought she did great in the film, and so when he was writing Golden Voyage of Sinbad, he recommended her
I see. I knew there was a
as the
Sinbad
girl,
connection.
and
somewhere.
as the girl with the palm, with the eye on the palm, and Martin Shaw was in that as well from The Professionals. He's a
Wow.
young man in that as well. So there's lots of
Yeah.
secular stuff that goes on.
Well, it's such a small business.
It is.
Yeah, if you're working,
if you're in it, yeah, if you're in it.
yeah. But yeah, she's lovely and very 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 nice woman, and I'm sure she would happily chat to you about.
Yeah.
I'm sure
And
you guys about. Bond.
You guys have worked with her daughter.
Yeah, Jojo, her daughter was in our film Dress Rehearsal. She's one
Oh,
of the
right,
leads in
okay.
that, and because I used to teach her acting, and I just thought she would. It was bizarre. We needed an actress that could sing like opera singing,
Mm-hmm.
and could totally and utterly do it, and not she had to be brilliant. And it was interesting because when we were auditioning, you either had people that were great at acting
Mm-hmm.
or great at singing, but finding
But not
someone in the middle
both.
was very, very difficult. And then the lady that we cast, Simon
Good
Sofinal,
evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a half-hour call. You have 30 minutes. Thank you.
woo, the
The
lady.
joys of a working theatre.
Yes, well, into the theatre. It's all happening. Yeah, Simone Sofinal, she was brilliant. We cast her immediately, and then we kind of thought we had to choose someone who looked like her when she was younger, and so Jojo had the sort of look and the essence of her,
Mm-hmm.
and so we decided to cast her in that, and now she's done a few films since then, hasn't
Yeah.
she?
I mean, we used her before that on the still trailer.
Yes, when we were shooting the trailer for Still, we a long time ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Before Dad rewrote the script for us, which you were on.
I worked on it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes. He
I
remembers
can- I
the
can
day,
play-
the day of hell.
Yeah.
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 Oh,
2 locations in one day.
One
I couldn't make
three,
this.
and then the first one got cancelled.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
God, yeah, that's a nightmare.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, originally I was the first AD, and then the camera assistant dropped out.
Yeah.
So we couldn't find anybody, so
You took
I
over
took over as the camera
with
assistant.
Joe.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It was, and Jojo, yeah, running up the stairs in my friend's ridiculous house,
Yes.
insane house. What, sorry?
I was just saying that.
Yeah, we might need to wrap up.
Yeah,
on
no,
that,
that-
because we might need to get out of here.
Well, I think we've sort of come to that point, unless
Yeah.
there's anything
Yeah.
you want to add. No. So, all right. So for our listeners, then, if people want to find your work, get in touch with you, etc., where can they find you?
Well, we're having our website redone at the moment, but you can still go to the site as is, which is www.clemensbros.co.uk.
Because you're such big fans of Bros.
That's the only reason. Yeah. Oh yeah, we must say our logo. The reason we have our logo with the eyebrow is hugely obviously inspired by Roger Moore, because
See,
we can
it's
we
perfect
can,
for this episode.
we can raise alternate eyebrows. So that's why. Sorry. Yeah. So all our work at the
Ladies and gentlemen, the house is now open. Please do not pass in front of the tabs. The house is now open. Thank you.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, brilliant.
You've heard it here first.
You've heard it here first. Yeah, so you can go to our website, clemensbros.co.uk, or follow our Twitter at Clemens Bros. Or at I suppose at Josh Twain, which is my Twitter
Or
account.
at Team George's.
Which
Mine.
is George's. And if you want to email us, it's all our details there. It's at clemensbros@gmail.com. If you want to put some money into one of our films or Dad's scripts, please call us.
There you go. And just remember where you heard it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And anything you want to promote or mention while we've got you here?
Well, yeah, I've just directed a play called Strictly Murder, written by our dad, which is a World War II thriller, which is currently on a national tour. We're here live in Stevenage, where it's playing tonight, but it is on a big tour all the way through till October. The closest dates to London are probably in September at the Yvonne Arnaud in Guildford, or the Rose Theatre in Kingston, and they're straight after each other towards the middle and the end of September. But you can find all the details of any of the other places at talking-scarlet.co.uk, which is the production company. And the only other thing is we've got a short film.
Say No.
Yeah, Say No, which is a short film about gun crime, which was developed by sort of the youth theatre, the Rose Theatre, and it was a summer film course that they provide, and I was asked to write and direct a short, and these kids happened to do an amazing job, and I showed a few people, professional people, that really enjoyed it and thought that it might have a life on the market. So they, quite a few of my contacts, decided to help us make it into a piece of work, like our composer Edward White. George obviously was editing on it, and brought it up to a standard where we've made the film, we've got everything ready to go. We're about to launch a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo, I think on the 12th of June, and we need to raise £4,000 for all the festival fees and the festival strategy in order to get it into the festivals and to get them a piece of professional work out there. And it's a great piece. It's a sort of tribute to Dunblane, and it's a film about gun crime, which is
Quite relevant.
Yeah, unfortunately
too relevant.
It's far too relevant. But so you can find that and follow us on Twitter at Say No Film, or on Instagram is the same at Say No Film as well. Thank you.
George, anything?
Just as I say, I should mention I've got 2 feature films that I edited coming out. One's called By Any Means, which you can find on iTunes, and I think it's coming out on a few other platforms like Amazon, but for the moment just iTunes on the 27th of June. So it's a nice thriller. It's first time director Leighton Spence, who's worked on quite a few features as cameraman, first AC and all that, and done very well for his first film, so I highly recommend that. And I've got another one that I'm working on now called Mother of All Secrets, which just keep your eye out for, because they're looking to turn it around very quickly. So I imagine probably by August at the latest that'll be available, and that stars Kate Mansi, who just won the Emmy, and Kelly McGuinness from Top Gun, doing quite a different role. And then there's just one other, which is Where the Skin Lies, which is done by a friend of mine called Mikhail Boucherie, and again, first breakout feature horror film, quite different, quite an interesting concept. I won't go into too many details, but keep up on where that's coming. I think the website's wheretheskinlies.co.uk, so you can find out about that and find out hopefully when it's going to be released.
Cool. And Mrs. Clemens, anything you want to add?
No, I think they've said it all.
Well, it just leaves us to thank you guys for joining us. Oh,
You're
sorry.
forgetting something.
Yeah, our contact
You're in a
details.
rush.
Yeah,
You're
sorry,
such a rush
I'm
to
conscious
get
we've got to finish. Sorry. Go on, Simon. Sorry.
All right. So Keith, where can we find your work?
Yeah, sure. If you go to YouTube and put in British Eyles, that's EYLES, you can find short pieces that I wrote, produced, and directed on there. Or go to IMDb and put in my name for past, future, present work.
And somebody's also listed as James Bond on there on IMDb.
Am I? Oh, good. Keith 007.
Keith 007.
Yeah.
Yes.
The closest I'll ever get, unfortunately.
Well, you
But,
keep making the James Bond lists on there, so
there we go.
don't knock it. And as always, you can find my work at independentrunnings.com. You can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and all good podcast providers. You can you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Just put in Movie Heaven, Movie Hell, and if leave us a review and rating on iTunes and Stitcher, it all helps.
Yeah.
So,
And thank you, guests, for this tribute to both Sir Roger Moore and Brian Clemens.
Thank you very much for having us.
It was as I had always imagined. There was no need for words. I took her hands. She took mine. It was as I'd always imagined. There was no need for words. I took her hands. She took mine. As far as we were concerned, there was no one else in the room or in the next room. or the Baron limping. I must say, I nearly broke up on the Baron of Burmans.
That's kind of why I put it in.